Hi there. If you're applying for the USA Diversity Visa or DV Lottery, one of the important steps you need to take is registering your spouse and children as part of the application process. It's crucial that you understand what this means so that you don't make any mistakes that could affect your application. Let me explain this in simple terms so you know exactly what to do. When you're filling out your DV Lottery application, you must include certain information about your spouse and children. The U.S. government wants to know about all your living children who are unmarried and under 21 years of age at the time of your application. You also need to list your spouse even if they aren't planning to immigrate to the U.S. with you. Here's what you need to do. For children, you need to list all your natural children, which means your biological children. Also include children you've legally adopted and stepchildren, which are children from your spouse's previous relationships. This is true even if the child doesn't live with you, won't be moving to the U.S. with you, or if you are no longer married to their parent. What's important is that the child is unmarried and under 21 when you submit your DV Lottery entry. For your spouse, make sure to include them, even if you're currently separated but not legally divorced. For each child, you'll need to give the following information. First, their name, including both the first name and the last name. Second, their date of birth, which means the day, month, and year they were born. Third, their gender, whether they are male or female. Fourth, the city or town of birth, where the child was born. And lastly, the country of birth, the country where the child was born. Additionally, you'll need to upload individual photos of each child that meet specific photo requirements, just like the one you submit for yourself. It's important to ensure these photos are clear and follow the rules, so be sure to check the specifications before uploading. The types of children you should include are: first, natural children. These are your biological children, whether they live with you or not. Second, legally adopted children. If you have legally adopted a child, include them as well, even if they don't live with you or plan to immigrate to the U.S. with you. Third, stepchildren. If you're married and your spouse has children from a previous relationship, include these children if they are under 21 and unmarried, regardless of whether they live with you or will move to the U.S. with you. Exceptions. Which children not to include? Married children. If your child is married, they are no longer eligible for the DV Lottery. You should not include them in your application. Children, over 21. If your child has already turned 21 before you apply, they are not eligible either, so you won't list them. However, there's a special rule under the Child Status Protection Act. If you applied before your child turned 21 but they reached that age during the application process, they might still be eligible for a visa. This law helps prevent children from aging out of the process. What about U.S. citizen or permanent resident children? If you have a child who is already a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident, you don't need to worry about listing them on your DV Lottery application. You won't be penalized for either including them or leaving them out. They already have the right to live in the U.S., so they won't need a diversity visa. What happens if you don't list all your eligible children and spouse? Here's where it gets serious. If you fail to list any child or your spouse who should be included, or if you list someone who isn't your child or spouse, this can disqualify your entire DV application. That means you, your spouse, and any of your children could lose their chance to get a visa through the Diversity Visa Lottery. Imagine this. You applied for the Diversity Visa Lottery and found out that you won. This should be the happiest moment for you and your family. But then, you realize you didn't list your children or your spouse on the application. Because of that, your entire application can be rejected when it's reviewed during the visa process. It won't matter that you were selected as a winner. Your visa will be denied because you didn't follow the rules. The difficulty of bringing your family later. Some people think they can apply on their own and bring their spouse and children later, but this is much more complicated than it sounds. If you don't list your family on the original DV application, even if you win, it will be very hard to bring them to the U.S. later. If you move to the U.S. first and try to sponsor your family later through the family petitioning process, it can take years. During this time, your family will be separated from you. The emotional and financial stress of waiting so long can be overwhelming. It's much easier and faster to include your spouse and children in the initial application so they can immigrate with you right from the start. Final message. Don't take the risk. Please don't take this risk. It's incredibly important that you include all eligible family members, your spouse and all your children, when you apply for the Diversity Visa Lottery. Double-check every piece of information before you submit your application. One small mistake could cost you, and it could take away the chance of a lifetime to start a new life in the US with your loved ones by your side. So when applying, don't rush. Take your time to carefully fill in all the details for your spouse and children. It's a small step that will save you from huge heartbreak down the road. Good luck, and be sure to give yourself and your family the best chance for success.